Close to a coalition deal that could see it govern several metros and municipalities across the country. Federal Chair James Selfe told the SABC the party hopes to conclude negotiations by midweek.
The DA has won majority votes in the Nelson Mandela Bay Metro as well as Tshwane, while the ANC has retained majority votes in Johannesburg with 44% of the count. However, the DA is not far from the ANC with 38% count of the votes in the metro. Now, to speak to us a little bit more about the DA and how they are looking at coalitions with the different smaller parties is Mr. James Selfe, who is with the DA. Thank you so much for joining me, Mr. Selfe. What is the status of these secretive coalition talks?
Well, we have been in discussion with the various parties for the last week and a half. And some of the discussions were very difficult to start with, but we are now concentrating on the practicalities of how to run those metropolitan areas.
And who are some of these parties that you're in talks with?
Well, we obviously start off with the party that is biggest, and that is the Economic Freedom Fighters. But there are a number of other parties as well, the COPE, the UDM, the ACDP and the Freedom Front Plus, all of whom make up that amount of votes.
And there's been reports over the weekend newspapers that there's a big announcement that's due on Tuesday this week, or rather next week. And some of the talks are suggesting that you've managed to land a coalition with the EFF?
Well, it's, I think, too early for us to say definitively. Each of us has to go back to our principles. We have to get sign-off by the executives of our organisation, but we do think that there has been an encouraging progress in our talks, not only with the EFF, but also with the other parties, sufficient to form a coalition that can govern in those metropolitan areas.
Specifically with the EFF, what has the reaction been from them? Have they been receptive to what you're proposing?
No, I think we have met each other and listen to each other respectfully. Obviously, their starting point is a different one from ours, but even within that, happily municipalities are not institutions that nationalise mines, for example. But even within that framework, there are some things that municipalities can do that help to uplift the poorest of the poor, which is an agenda that both the EFF and ourselves share.
Ideologically, there does seem to be a bit of a disconnect between the DA and the EFF. Wouldn't that be a tripping point?
Well, maybe, further down the line, it could be. But actually, lots of parties use a lot of rhetoric, particularly in designing their manifestos. And actually, if you look beyond the rhetoric and you drill down to find out what you actually want to achieve, there's not a great deal of distance between what the EFF wants to achieve and what we want to achieve.
But how will you navigate the nationalisation call?
Well, there's nothing that a municipality can nationalise, so it doesn't become an issue in municipal government.
Have you spoken to the ANC?
No, we
Why
haven't
not?
Spoken to the ANC. I believed that the ANC has too much power already, but I doubt very much that we would be in the market for a coalition with the ANC, since the state of the cities today is very largely a factor of the mismanagement by that party.
When will you know what the final agreement is between the different smaller parties that you want to have coalitions with?
Well, I imagine that it will be in the course of the middle of this week. We are negotiating nationally.
Thank you so much. That was Mr. James Selfe, DA Federal Chair, who was speaking to us around the issue of coalitions. Anytime soon next week, we'll get feedback on which coalitions the DA has managed to secure.